Well, a very good evening and Happy New Year to each and every one of you.
Yes.
Welcome back to this year's Your Manchester. How are you?
I'm very well, and you?
I'm very good. Did you have a good New Year?
It was all right.
Did you get drunk?
I don't drink.
I did.
Oh, well, there we are. I slept through it. You were working.
I was working. I had the most scary experience of my career.
Why? What happened?
I was booked for a venue and I had this music to play the New Year's Eve. Dong, dong,
yes,
dong,
the
dong,
big
dong.
bongs.
That obviously has to be played at the right time. You can't muck it up.
Yeah.
I mucked it up. I played it out the wrong thing, so it wasn't working.
It's not the first time you've performed out of the wrong thing, though, is it?
No, it's not. No. It was eventful, though. It was very eventful. It made me appreciate liveness. Which is why, from next week,
Yes.
we're going live again, everybody.
We are, aren't we? Yes.
Are you looking forward to that?
Yes, extremely.
Yes. Yes. It'd be good live.
Oh, yeah, and I prefer doing the show live.
Do you?
I do.
I don't.
It's more dangerous, isn't it? Anything could happen.
Not enough time to put a good filter on my lovely youthful face.
Well, I've been in talks with Polyfiller, and we're seeing whether we can get some in time.
Here we've got a cracking show today.
Yes, we have. It's a very curry theme.
Well, as it should be.
Curry.
As it should be. We were supposed to be doing something on the 9th of December, but unfortunately that kind of fell through, didn't it? So we thought we'd do it as soon as we get back to you here today.
Yeah.
And what an exclusive we were given, though.
Well, indeed. We have had an exclusive look behind the scenes on the old studios, haven't we? The Key Street
Studios. Because the amount of times I've walked past there and they've been doing so much down that area. They really have. What else is on the show today, please?
I am taking a walk.
Right.
Yes, in the borough of Tameside. That also has a bit of a curry theme to it, by the way.
It does. Whereabouts in Tameside do you go?
Dukinfield. And then into Ashton-under-Lyne.
You've been around.
Oh, I have. I did. Yes, absolutely.
And then later on in today's show, we're going to speak to Ste Stockton, of course, who heads up our podcast.
He does. He presents the podcast. He does. And I've never met him, have you?
No. I've heard his voice several times.
He's bobbing in, isn't he?
He's bobbing in. I don't know how he's going to get through the door, but I mean, he's coming in anyway.
Yes, he'll parachute him.
He's coming in. So this is how your show's looking.
Very exciting, isn't it?
I am excited about seeing this. It's been a joy to be able to go down there. We must say,
yes,
this is the first of a few features that we can do from this particular area. Now it's sort of multi-purpose use, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. So I think in a couple of weeks we're going to see what they've done with the actual studio where they had the indoor sets.
Yes.
But today we're on the dressing room corridors, aren't we?
Oh. Here we are now. You've took us to here again.
That's hallowed ground.
Hallowed ground. It is hallowed ground because this is where the original Coronation Street kind of ran.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Now, today what we're doing?
So today we have come for an exclusive look inside the building behind us. We are on stage one.
Yes.
So they built this outdoor lot in 1981, 82, and then after that they built a whole indoor studio with dressing room complex and all the rest of it. And that is where we're going, my dear.
Well, let's go.
Come on.
Come on.
Right, so here we are on the second floor of dressing room corridor.
Now, this is quite magical for me, everybody, because we've just stumbled across a blueprint, I suppose you'd call it, wouldn't you, of what used to be here for Granada Studios tour when it first came here. Not the Coronation Street Experience tour, because that was a bit pathetic. But this is proper. This has got it all going on, and this takes me back. I think it must be either 89 or 90. As a young person that I was, everybody else was turning up to Granada Studios tour thinking it was just some sort of, day out, stuff like that. Me, full tie, suit, lambskin coat, right? I was ready for it because I felt like I was going on to a set, going into the movies. But I mean, this just takes you back and it just shows you how big the Coronation and the Granada Studios tour was.
Yeah, absolutely. So you had the Coronation Street set that we've just been stood on the place that was, and they only filmed out there on a Monday.
Right.
So the rest of the week they could have it open to the public. So you come in off Water Street.
Yes.
You go into the New York set.
Where you'd meet Emmy and
OB.
Yes. That was the two mascots.
They were mascots. In fact, I remember Anne Kirkbride getting in a lift and OB, the chap in the mascot costume, got in the lift and she screamed her head off, had to be calmed down. And they said, if you meet in future, Keith, who's in the OB costume, will say, "Hello, Annie, I'm Keith," and it'll be fine.
Right.
So the next time she's got in the lift, OB got in, she said, "Hello, Keith," and he said, "No, this is Bert." It
So
was
she
Keith
screamed
Studio.
again.
So they used to roam around the studios. And then the Arches,
Yes.
which had been the very original Arches on the first outdoor set.
Yes.
They were done up as like a De Vere hotel and things, and you would go through,
Yes.
wouldn't you? And then behind there you had the Houses of Parliament.
Yes.
Yeah. The Borrowers.
The Borrowers. I mean, it was magical,
Sooty
wasn't
show.
it? The Sooty Show.
Yes. An old cinema, 30s cinema. And, of course, the Baker Street set from the Sherlock Holmes, the Jeremy
Now
Brett
that
series.
used to blag my absolute head because you were engrossed in it.
Absolutely.
People think that this experience was nothing, but it was.
Oh,
a
it
lot of money was
it
spent
was
in
like
it.
Hollywood, wasn't it?
Going up some staircases, you even had the Star Wars theme, and you had a
Yes,
skyline
and it was like you were
of New
over
York.
that's right. It was fantastic. So Baker Street was down there. That building eventually became the second indoor studio for Coronation Street.
Right.
And then you got on a tram.
Yes.
And you went through Checkpoint Charlie. They interrogated you.
It was scary.
Yes.
It was scary.
I think they were real soldiers brought over
I think
from
they
East
probably
Germany.
thought they were by the end
They
of
were,
it.
yeah. And then you went into what became the medical centre.
Yes.
You remember going in there?
I remember going in there because that was something special. For those who wanted to be on Coronation Street, see Coronation Street, you were basically watching a load of old highlights of Coronation Street. Of course, the infamous one with Arbette Lynch screaming as she was on fire in the
Yes,
Rovers.
that's right.
That beautiful one. And then it turned.
It was a revolve, wasn't it?
A
That's right,
revolve.
yeah. And you then the doors opened and you came out
To
of
the Coronation
graffiti
Street theme
club, as
tune.
it was there.
Yeah.
That's right, out onto the street. So it was a really big thing. It was a huge attraction, wasn't it?
So many people spent their time on Coronation Street looking through the letterboxes, believing they could
Yes.
see Vera and Jack in their houses.
Well, they did. Now, the terrace of the houses was really one big shell.
Yeah.
And Roy, who I mentioned before, he would often sneak out, go down the shell into the Rovers, and when people looked through the letterbox, he would, as Alec Gilroy, then tell them they were barred. And Phil Middlemiss and Jill Summers were always up to mischief. If they sat in where we were before, if they sat in the children's room at the end, or the smoking room, it was one-way mirror, so they could look out onto the tours.
Right.
So sometimes Phil would dress up and go out onto the street set to amuse Jill, who was watching. And he would then stop people and say he was a big fan of Des Barnes. Would they take a photo of him with his camera in front of Des Barnes' house? Not knowing it was actually him.
Des Barnes.
Yes, so the cast did all kinds of things.
So that was Granada Studios tour, but I mean,
Yes.
behind Granada Studios tour, like you say, Coronation Street was still a very much a working set.
Oh, yeah.
As this corridor that we've come onto now proves, because we've been given exclusive access
Yes,
to
we
this.
And
Nobody's,
it's kind of preserved, isn't it?
which is lovely.
Yeah.
Because so much of it, when you walk past the old Granada, looks like it's been demolished.
Yeah.
It's being changed. Just on our way here, we saw the plaques on the doors.
Yes.
But this is kind of, other than the colour of it,
Yeah.
It
Oh,
stayed
it's
the
as I
same.
remember it, being on this corridor quite a lot. So when you were in the show,
Yes.
you weren't allowed up here, were you?
No, I was in a creche, which is the first time I stumbled across during the Goodyear.
Right.
Because where the creche was, there was a toilet directly in front of it,
Yes.
and she walked past, and I was like, "Oh my giddy aunt, there she is." But classy as always, as she came out, I think she was wearing a purple or a blue suit.
Right.
It was when she had her dynasty hair, as I call it, not her traditional hair. She came out, she pulled her skirt down like that just to make sure it was all straight, and then walked past. And it was just, it feels surreal in some of these places.
It was very odd to see those people when I'd be here and go in the green room and things, and you'd see them for the first time.
Yeah.
It was very peculiar, but yeah.
So let's have a look at these dressing rooms then, and perhaps
Yes.
you've got some stories of them.
Yep, so this is second floor, and this was the big stars of the show. And in fact, Darren Little, I think, was the person who allocated the dressing rooms on this corridor.
Wow, let's have a look at it then.
And here we are.
Wow. I mean, I've seen these in all the documentaries,
Yes.
but you were never allowed up here.
Oh, no, no one was. No. You had to work on production to be allowed up here. And me.
Obviously.
It's like Pat Phoenix is back into
Isn't it?
Yes.
Aye.
So,
you
yeah.
can feel them though, or is it just me?
No, I think there's a lot. Well, there's a lot of history here, isn't there?
You can sense the stars and the comments and conversations that kind of must have gone on around
Yeah,
here.
so this was quite busy. Obviously, wardrobe would be coming back and forth, people coming off the studio floor. because, I mean, things changed a lot, and they make it completely differently now. But of course, when this was done, as we said, they would film outside on Mondays. So what they would do is, Sundays normally was out on location.
Right.
Then you do on the street set on a Monday.
Yeah.
And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday was inside.
Right.
And they would rehearse first, which is they don't really do anymore. And you would normally get blocks. So if you were in the Rovers, you would do, say, 5-6 Rover scenes, one after the other, from that week's episode. Okay. So there was a lot of rushing back up here to change costumes and things like that.
Wow.
So it was very busy.
Very busy.
Here. Yes.
So what, because this is obviously the trendy colour at the moment, what kind of colour was this? What would, if we're going back to the 90s,
I was trying to think
80s?
what it was like. So, this was really the 90s. So it was cream.
Cream.
Yes.
And that dodgy 90s orange.
That was a bit orange.
It?
But in each dressing room, if you were on here, that meant you were, permanent member of cast.
Right.
So most of the dressing rooms, people would decorate with their own stuff. So like Betty's was absolutely covered in pictures. Some people had antique furniture. They were like the.
That's Betty Driver.
Yes, Betty Driver.
That's the show, yeah.
Yeah. So they were very individual in what they had in.
Right, come on then. Let's get into one of these dressing rooms.
Okay.
Because at the moment we're in a corridor of failed dreams for me.
Failed dreams? Oh dear. Are you all right?
I'm having a moment. I'm having a moment of lack of achievement. I am.
Well, so.
Yes.
This was one of the star dressing rooms.
Well, aren't they lovely?
And this was Betty Driver's dressing room.
Betty Driver, as in
Yes.
Betty Turpin's dressing room?
Yes, indeed it was.
They're not small, are they?
No, and then they have quite a big bathroom as well. So these were for the big stars of the show.
Yeah.
So there you are. Why don't you try? It was furnished very differently. In fact, there's a mirror still, which we'll show you in a second. But there you are.
Oh, God.
How's that?
Not bright enough to cover my dulcet tones, I tell you.
So that looks very good.
I feel right at home. I do.
Now downstairs in what was the studio,
Yes.
where the sets were, they're now using that for go-karting. So we'll take you down there in a couple of weeks' time. How's that?
We'll have a look at. Look, that mirror.
Yes.
Was that indicative of kind of Betty's style, was it?
Yes. Yeah. There were lots of pictures on the walls, and if I remember, that wall where you were sat, that was painted red.
Red, as in bright red?
Yes.
As in letterbox red?
Yes, almost. And there were lots of kind of gilt frames with pictures and things like that.
So Coronation Street, it's always been said that it's a busy programme to make and everything.
Yeah.
So what would they have kind of used these dressing rooms for then?
So when you came in downstairs in the green room,
Yeah.
you would have laid out, and it's far more complex today, but you'd have laid out on the walls all the kind of schedules for what each day was being done, where the scenes were. And so that would dictate your costume changes. So you would come up here, you'd go to makeup, which would be a separate room. They wouldn't come here and do makeup.
Yeah.
Some people did their own, of course.
Yeah.
But a rail would be brought in, and that would have your various costumes for today on it, depending on what scenes you were doing. In the script, it will say each scene what time of day that's supposed to be. So you would know whether you're in evening, whether your Rita would know whether she'd go into the Rovers in the evening, whether she's in the shop. Although she always wore a lot of glitter, of course. I remember my mum meeting Barbara Knox. My mum had just bought a new evening gown for an event.
Right.
And she had to go at Barbara because Rita had worn that same evening gown for bagging up the papers in one of the episodes. And that was Rita.
That's Rita. That's very much me as well.
Yes, absolutely. And then on your door, you would have your name plaque. So that is Roy Barraclough's name plaque from his dressing room.
Right.
Now, this was from the second time he was in the show. Now, he came in just as Jill Summers, who was his great friend who played Phyllis Pierce.
Yeah.
She left the show due to ill health.
Right.
And he then said he wouldn't take her name off the door. So they had both names so that she was never forgotten.
Wow.
And in fact, her dressing room, she had come up through the, vaudeville and tough times. And she stayed at the Midland Hotel quite a lot when she was filming. And I was asked to come into the dressing room when she died because there were boxes and boxes of stuff she'd nicked from the Midland Hotel shower caps, shoe shine, all that kind of
No,
stuff.
nicking, it's included in the
Well,
price.
it is. I think she went a bit further than that. But that was obviously because of the days being brought out when she didn't know where the next meal was going to come.
That's it though, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the quite simplistic rooms, but you could do with them what you wanted.
Yeah.
Would they have a couch in there if they were working long days? Would some of them have a bed in
Yeah,
there?
quite
even?
a lot had a bed or a sofa that they could have a lie down on because, you might be in filming your first scene at 8 in the morning.
Yeah.
Which for the ladies in particular, that would mean something like a 6 o'clock makeup and hair call. A lot of the ladies wore wigs because it was easier. And, then you might do one scene, you might be stuck here for 3 hours.
Waiting, because they do say it's a waiting game,
It
isn't
is a waiting game. Lynn Perry, who used to play Ivy Tilsley,
Yeah.
she would get bored.
Well, she would.
She would decide that she wanted, say, a loaf for taking home with at the end of the night. She'd call a taxi to go and buy a loaf.
Yeah.
She'd go off to do a scene.
Yeah.
Forget the taxi was outside, and when she'd left at 7 in the evening, she'd be paying like 300 quid for a loaf.
Well, I suppose they had the money in them days, though, didn't they? I tell you. Love it! Right, where are we now, please, Mark?
We're in one of the production rooms.
There's mirrors everywhere. I love it.
There
Production
is.
room. What happened in the production room then?
So they would have all kinds of conferences in here, and people who didn't get their own dressing rooms might be put in here, and they would have meetings and castings and all kinds of things like that. And then down here on the wall,
Yes.
we've got Manchester Studios, you see. So there's still stuff filmed in some of the buildings on the site, like Dragon's Den
Yes.
has been filmed here recently.
I've just spotted
and
a
you
door.
can rent out some of the studio space.
Now, the original Coronation Street, if I'm right, the studio was Studio 2. Now, didn't that
Yeah.
become Northwest tonight or Granada tonight?
Yes. So in the main block, which is still standing, which they're kind of adding to because it is a listed building.
Yeah.
When the Bernsteins, who own Granada Television, when they got the franchise for television here, they came and visited Manchester. Now, originally the franchise was right the way across the north.
Ah,
And so it included Liverpool right the way across to Leeds.
Leeds and everything, right.
And the story goes that they let it be known that they were going to build their studios in Leeds. Manchester Council really wanted it here,
Of course.
so they struck a deal for the site.
Right.
For that main studio block, they called the studios 2, 4, 6 and 8.
Yes.
So their rivals thought they had more studios than they did. And they didn't know commercial television would be successful. So that every room had a small room next to it, and then they knew they could convert it into a hotel if commercial television work out. And in actual fact, they almost did go bankrupt within a couple of years of opening, because the costs of the staff building it, setting the whole place up, practically bankrupt them immediately.
Until, of course, they discovered a little man called Mr. Tony Warren, and he brought them the most successful soap known to man.
Well, he did, but of course they didn't like it. I mean, the Burnsides didn't want the show.
Well, because they were too posh, weren't they? Let's be honest.
Well,
they were
yes.
business people.
Yeah.
I've heard the story. It was a cleaner that watched it and thought, brilliant, it's actually telling real stories of real people.
Well, they showed it around. Harry Elton, who was the producer, Canadian, showed the pilot episode on screens all over the studios and got people to fill in questionnaires, ordinary people. And that's what it got it. But the cleaner story, or the tea lady story,
Tea lady, I should
is
say,
that
yes.
Tony's working title was Florizel Street,
Yeah, which is a disinfectant.
and that's what she said.
Ah,
and
it's like I know it.
That's why they changed the name. And Florizel came because when he was writing it, on his bedroom wall, he had a print of the prince in Sleeping Beauty cutting his way through the undergrowth, and that's Prince Florizel. That's where the name came from.
So, Coronation Street, which
Yeah.
coronation are we talking?
Who do you think?
I want to say it's probably going to be the one before Queen Elizabeth's mother, Queen Elizabeth II's father.
No, way before that. So it's 1902, after the death of Queen Victoria. So it was her son Bertie, who became king. So they had two potential names: Jubilee,
Yes.
which would have meant it was built in 1897, Queen Victoria's
Right.
Diamond Jubilee,
Yeah.
or Coronation. The story goes that they went out, had a few drinks, had a meal, and voted. And they gave the correct name to a secretary to phone it through to London. She looked at the decision, which was Jubilee Street, and she didn't like it, so she phoned through Coronation Street. I'd love to think that was a true story.
Well, you never know.
You don't know.
Well, we are in a place of creativity.
We are indeed.
Speaking of which, I've just seen another door. Well, do you know?
Yes, love.
You find all sorts if you look inside. So we've just been in one of the dressing rooms and we've managed to find an old script from 1992.
Yes.
Um,
And that is for the lady who would have been in this dressing room.
well, who was in this dressing room?
I bet you can't guess.
Bet. Betty or
No,
Bet?
Bet. Julie Goodyear.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So this was hers?
This was hers. Goodness knows what went on in here, love.
Well, I know she's got a few stories, hasn't she?
Yes, she certainly has.
Do you know the story that I'm not going to fold that? I'm going to put that
No,
down gently.
yes.
Do you know the story that I'm lent to? Because I never saw this happen. But is it true that we're going to build a ride that went around and in the studios?
Yes, so it never actually happened. The cast didn't like the idea, but because they were filming more and more on the outdoor set, so they couldn't guarantee, you know, when more episodes came in, they couldn't guarantee you would get on the outdoor set.
Right.
They came up with a plan to put like a monorail through the studio.
What?
A monorail.
Hanging over the top of...
Yes, so you
so
go
they'd be
around
filming
on a
down
kind
there.
of slow train above.
Like
the
Willy
filming.
Wonka's boat.
Yes. In fact, that was another plan because the canal goes underneath here up to behind the Bridgewater Hall. And so they were talking at one point about having a Phantom of the Opera ride and you would go up there to the concert hall.
So what
But
happened
yes.
with this monorail then? Why
Well,
did
it
it
never,
happen?
well,
Why?
the cast didn't want people
Oh, 'cause the cast
above
didn't
them
want
watching
it.
and taking photographs.
Oh.
You know, a bit of an invasion of privacy, though.
Well, I know, but it was a tourist attraction at the same time.
Well, they
wasn't it?
weren't, I suppose.
So quite a
yeah.
fascinating thing that we've seen today. But if we cut back to ourselves now, over in our studio,
Yes.
which doesn't have a dressing room.
Really, I've got one.
Trust me, I don't need one. I arrive like this because I'm so glamorous. Then you've got a few more artifacts for us, haven't you?
Indeed, I have.
But how fantastic
Yes,
was
we
that?
were very lucky, weren't we?
What was prevalent to me was how many careers have started, continued on there, and in some respects ended.
Oh, definitely ended on there.
Yeah, I mean, that
Yes.
corridor's just quite fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, because you take it from the time of like Doris Speed's last couple of years.
Yeah.
As Annie Walker, that would have been when they first moved into that complex. So right the way through until when they moved down to Salford.
Of course, you're a big Corrie collector,
Yes.
and we've got some. You've brought some of your personal
Yes.
souvenirs that were part of Coronation Street into the studio.
I have.
That was a long way of saying it. I got that.
So in this little tin, which is actually of the street,
Oh,
Alfred
sure.
Roberts, you see there.
Yes.
So that was Alf Roberts who had the corner shop.
Yes.
But when Mrs. Thatcher visited the studio, she was quite taken with that because her dad was called Alfred Roberts.
Of course
and
he
had the shop.
was.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in here,
Yes.
you'll like these.
Yes.
Your favourite person on the street ever,
Whom?
Pat Phoenix.
Miss Phoenix.
So these were
Hers.
her earrings, yes.
Were they? Look, can we just show the let's just look, have a look.
Yes.
At them, Everett. Look, I've got a plaster on today. I do apologise.
I know, yeah.
But look.
You were a bit.
I'll just
No, you won't.
I'll just make
I need to keep these.
That's fine. I'll just make sure they look good enough on me. I can feel her as I'm putting them on.
Can you?
Yeah.
They can't touch you for it.
No.
Yeah,
They're sparkling.
it's like QVC.
Are they real diamonds?
I don't believe they are real diamonds, no.
No.
And they were given to Roy Barraclough, who would always wear them as Panto Dame.
Oh.
As a little tribute to Pat Phoenix.
So he was allowed to wear them, but I'm not. Right.
That's right. And then I've also brought in a very famous duck.
Yes.
Yes, I think that was the middle one, which was always like that.
Droopy.
Yes.
Yes.
So they had several sets of ducks that used to hang on Hilda's wall at various times.
Right. Did Hill start the duck scenario, the duck situation?
The first person to have ducks on a wall was Elsie Tanner,
Of
surprisingly.
course it was.
Yes, so she did from the very beginning, and then later ducks appeared in Hilda on the mural.
So, I mean, they're made out of metal, for
Yes.
starters. I always thought they were made out of some sort of plaster.
No,
But they're not.
they're metal. And they had lots of different sets, and I was given a set by Bill Podmore, who was the
Yes.
producer from the
You keep talking,
80s,
I'm gonna
70s,
show
and
off.
80s.
There we go.
And then I've also brought along from Jill Summers, who played Phyllis Pierce.
Yes.
Yes. So when she was in Variety,
Yes.
this was some of her sheet music, play-on music.
Right.
And she came on to a song called I Could Open Your Eyes. There we are.
Stevie Wonder.
I don't think it was. But yes. So I've got full collection of her music
What
and
key
so
is
on.
she doing? Let's have a look.
You tell me.
Let's have a look. That's 3 flats.
You're a
E something.
E something. Well, thank you very much for that insight.
C, D, E.
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 Lovely. Can you give us an E?
No, it's not the 90s. I don't do E's anymore. Go on.
And we've also got these two.
Now, these are brilliant. I found these in the dressing rooms we were just at. Everybody.
You did. So that's the souvenir booklet for Elsie Tanner's wedding to Steve Tanner. So Pat, when she was being married, she didn't want Elsie to change her name, so she had to marry somebody also called Tanner. And the power.
The power.
The photos were taken at St Margaret's Church in Whalley Range.
Yeah.
And then this one is from the souvenir 1,000 episodes, and that was taken at Bellevue. They took them to Bellevue.
Oh, Bellevue. We must do a piece on that at some point, because I think that's fascinating.
It is fascinating.
Fascinating.
So yeah, that goes for all the characters now.
What's
so there you are, just a few little
thanks for bringing them
bits
in.
and bobs. You're very welcome.
When can we put the ducks up?
We can't. They'll be going back under lock and key.
I'm going to find some ducks. Viewers, if any of you have 3 ducks, send them to us, please. Thank
Live or otherwise.
you. Anyway, listen, you do
Yeah.
get around, don't you?
Yeah, there's ducks in this actually.
Is there?
Yes.
You're obsessed. Right, you tell everybody where you've been, what you've been doing.
I have been out and about in the borough of Tameside, visiting Dukinfield and Ashton-under-Lyne on the Trail of Lost of the Summer Wine and Coronation Street.
Hello and welcome to our first walk of the new year, and we've left the city centre. We've come out to the suburbs. Actually, I'm in a place called Dukinfield. This is in the borough of Tameside. Now, Dukinfield stands high on a promontory over the borough of Tameside in the northeast of Greater Manchester. In fact, it has great views over the city. And behind me is Dukinfield Old Chapel, probably the oldest religious place in the borough. The first place of worship that was built here was in 1707, although the church behind me dates from the 1840s. Amongst the people who worshipped here, the Gaskill family and also Beatrix Potter's family, who live locally as well. It's also known for its TV appearance. When Roy and Hayley in Coronation Street tried to get married the first time when it was illegal, this is where they filmed those scenes, and it was Les Battersby that tipped off the press. And the press came and stopped the wedding. There had to be a ceremony within Roy's roles. So, there's a little bit of Hollywood here. And in fact, Dukinfield has a few connections to television. We'll hear about them as we walk through the district. So I've just walked down the hill, yes, from the chapel, and I've reached the scene of Dukinfield Town Hall. Now, it's actually surrounded with security tape at the moment, and the reason is that not far away is Staley Bridge. That's where they had the tornado the other day, and this was the centre for the emergency services. But we'll go around the front and we'll have a look at the town hall. So Dukinfield Town Hall is quite an imposing building anyway, but yes, it was also used for filming, and yes, also for Coronation Street. I suppose lots of places in Greater Manchester are, aren't they? This is where Steve McDonald tried to get married the first time. There's a lot of trying to get married around here, isn't there? He tried to get married to Vicky, Alec Gilroy's granddaughter, but Bet and Alec turned up to stop the wedding. Mind you, they did get married in St Lucia a few months later, so perhaps things weren't so bad. And the car park here has been used for filming and so on. Now, Dukinfield is also the birthplace of a lady called Minnie Higginbottom. Never heard of her? Well, she changed her name to Cathy Staff. She of the wrinkled stockings in Last of the Summer Wine. And she lived not so far over there. She went to the local church, which now has a plaque and a stained glass window in her honour. And she's also buried in the cemetery here. She started off in television in things like Crossroads and Open All Hours as well. There's another connection to Last of the Summer Wine, and that is that also another local resident of Dukinfield, born here, was a great composer of music. Yes, so he was called Ronnie Hazelhurst. He composed the theme tune for Last of the Summer Wine, also for Are You Being Served? He was the musical director for the Eurovision Song Contest, lots of BBC theme tunes and also incidental music. And he was born just up the road, another Dukinfield resident. So I've made my way down through Dukinfield and I've arrived at the main town in Tameside, which is Ashton-under-Lyne. And right here in the middle is a sort of motorway junction for canals. Several canals join up here, and behind me is what is now a museum and apartments, Portland Basin. It used to be sort of a place where goods were taken off the barges, they were kept overnight, they were split, and they were sent off in the various directions of travel. It is also a Corrie filming location. It was here that Richard Hillman drove the Platts into the water, and David Platt drove his car in a few years later. It's well worth a visit, actually. Closed today because we're filming over New Year, but it's well worth a visit, Portland Basin Museum. Now, as I say, we're in Ashton-under-Lyne. The Corrie cast came from here as well. But one I want to mention, and that is a little girl, yes, and she started out under the name Shirley Ann Broadbent. She made her first appearance in, I'm afraid, the long demolished Theatre Royal in Ashton-under-Lyne Town Centre, but she became known as Amanda Barry. So that brings us to the end of our walk this time. We'll see you next time.
Well, that was, you get around.
Oh, I do. Yes, I
Did you
do.
enjoy that?
Oh, it was lovely.
It's a nice place, isn't
And it was very early on New Year's Day.
I've never been.
Very quiet.
It looks lovely. I didn't know that was where Richard Hillman decided to.
Yes, absolutely.
All of you go!
Like he was here then, wasn't it? I was terrified.
Thank you. It was good one to drama. Where are we at now, please?
Well, we've got a guest with us.
You're joking me.
Wow, who did you think that was?
Somebody important.
The
Hello, Stephen
Hello.
Stockton. Welcome.
How are you both?
Well, I'm not.
Wow.
I'm impressed that you look this good because we've only ever heard you on
I know.
the podcast.
I do
Yes.
actually exist in person.
Yeah. So
Yes.
what's the purpose of the podcast? What's it doing? Where's it on? Where can we find it?
You told me to do one, so I did one.
Okay.
Right, on with the show now.
Oh, very much.
No, of course. The podcast is, of course, the best of this show.
Yeah.
We have exclusive content on the podcast.
Yes.
There is regular faces,
Mm-hmm.
well, voices, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, what we got to look forward to in the next few months on the podcast?
Lots of very different things. We always have a weekly What's On guide.
Yes.
Pick of the week is always a very good one to listen to. So listen out for that every week.
And there is so much going on at the moment, isn't there? I mean, King and I, that's coming very soon.
When is that?
Yes, and I'm also looking forward to the end of the year for Wicked as well.
Of
That's going
course.
to be amazing.
Excellent. What dates is that on, please?
End of the year and coming soon.
You know what else is on at the end of the year? It's not actually on the list, actually, but I mentioned it on Sunday.
What?
The Les Miserables Arena Spectacular.
Oh, you did mention it,
I
didn't
did,
you?
yes.
Where's that on at?
It's on at the AO Arena.
See?
One thing that's quite in the news quite a lot at the minute is
Yes.
recent closures of restaurants.
Oh.
So one thing I'd wanted to mention was supporting independent restaurants in Manchester
Yes.
with their January offers. Check out the list that's going to be on the website this week of all the January offers for the independent restaurants in
independents
Manchester.
only.
For the
Yeah.
city centre.
For the city centre, yes.
What are you looking forward to?
What am I looking forward to? I'm looking forward to the Gap at Hope Mill. I thought you might like that one. Which stars our friends, Denise Welsh and Matthew Kelly.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's coming up.
Two more friends.
Bonnie and Clyde.
Two more friends. Do you remember them when they were reality? Don't you?
I worked with them in the day. That one, best new musical at the What's On Stage Awards last year. So
It's
that's
supposed to be quite good, actually.
it is very good. I've actually paid for tickets.
Don't bother.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that. And I tell you what, I suppose we should go and see.
Yes.
And I didn't know this. We should have known this. At Salford Museum and Art Gallery,
Yes.
on now through until February, is an exhibition about Islington Mill.
The first new Royal Horticultural Society show
Ah, yes.
coming to Manchester in April.
I've been asked to be involved in
Have
this.
you?
I bet you have.
Yes, of course, the RHS Urban Show. It's the first indoor show of theirs that they've done.
So is that indoor plants then?
No.
Not just indoor plants, no.
What else is in this stuff?
I've got Sounds of the Other City. Sounds of the City is at Castlefield Ball.
And of course, you're going to put all the dates up on the website for everything that's going on throughout the year, aren't you?
Throughout the year and on the podcast. So
Yes.
make sure you listen every week to the podcast.
So the podcast goes out.
Every Sunday
Every Sunday.
at 7 p.m.
At 7
7
p.m.
p.m.
But it's, of
7
course,
p.m.
available all the time.
Free to listen to
free to
on
listen to.
all platforms.
Yes.
Yes, get yourself to the website, yourmcr.com.
Well, thank you very much. Now, I've got to quickly mention before we go tonight,
Yes.
Pride in Leadership are doing their first event of 2024 on January the 24th.
Okay.
And this is going to be at 11 a.m. Till 12 p.m.
Yes.
And it's fantastic. It's going to be building the confidence of the LGBT leaders and future individuals that are going to be leaders. It's fantastic. And I want everybody to go to it. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, indeed. That's going to be exciting.
So where's all the details?
Here's the details. Are you ready? I'll read this off for you. Pride in Leadership. Next event is a conversation with Matthew Cornford, who has recently taken over the social refuge. He used to have queer lit. In the social refuge.
Yes.
Fabulous little space, a proper breakout space for everybody. And he's going to be speaking to him about setting up his award-winning LGBT plus bookshop that he's got going on there.
Right, excellent.
It's fantastic. So lots of questions to be
Very,
answered.
very good.
prideinleadership.co.uk for more information about that. We are now out of time.
We are.
Have you had fun?
Oh, immense fun. And that, because I rarely get out of the house, to be honest.
Oh, you've got out now. Got out now.
Well, the minibus is outside waiting to take it back.
You see, that's where you and I differ. You may act posh, but I'm the one with the helicopter. Thanks for watching, viewers. We'll see you on next week's episode of
Your Manchester.